Sometimes when I'm almost sober, I shake. I tremble and I feel cold and afraid, and a horrible surety that I've created a Mirrorland will-o-wisp comes over me. My mother went crazy before she died after all. It's in the blood. Maybe I've been talking to myself all this time. Maybe the dictation and the writing are just symptoms of a chemical imbalance. Maybe I'm broken. I don't really believe that, but I have no way of knowing for sure. I don't believe it, but I have no doubt that if I did break down the subjective truth barrier between us, Penny would assume the worst, and she'd be scared. I don't want to scare her. Christ, I don't want any of this. I refuse to look my daughter in the eyes and tell her that I'm haunted by my past and by the shade of her mother. I refuse to admit that there is no peace after death or that her mother's unfinished business is me. I won't diminish her mother's magic by limiting her purpose, and it would, reducing her return trip to an interrogation. Penny doesn't need to know how Andrea died or why. The grocery store is an enclave, sterile and harmless, like an unguarded, demilitarized zone made of fluff and fluorescence and canned music. There are no ghosts here and there are no judgments, only produce, neatly stacked cans and reassurance. It's brilliant, like an oasis. I wander up one aisle, down another, and I smile at familiar faces for no other reason than killing time here is like napping with killer visuals, and I know everyone. Small-town waterhole safety. Ad copy algorithms, cartoons, and promises. I put the hamburger in my cart and drift without destination in a time shell. Outside there is no peace. There are only breaths between blows. Inside there is unpleasant work to do, but here is a mind-numbing limbo. I pause in front of the wall of herbal teas and gourmet coffees, and I remember my pocket flask and pat it absently, reassured by its clunk and slosh. Darjeeling it is, and maybe some English breakfast. I add both to the cart. The bathrooms are near the pizza rolls and frozen lasagnas, and I think, Boo would probably appreciate some Morlock chow. So I whistle, I walk, and I park. I take my medicine in the men's room. Boo will be pleased. He loves lasagna. I was an accomplished alcoholic in middle school and a professional by grade 9. Legendary status was achieved in the years that followed my dropping out of college, when I started hearing stories from strangers and realized they were about me. Dude, I knew this guy, except they didn't, not really. I'd say that it was sobering to discover I'd been memed, but it was. If anything, I felt validated, solidified, and codified. There are still assholes among my peers that will say, yeah, I was drunk, but I wasn't Cam drunk, and that's fine. I'm not ashamed. Why would I be ashamed of what I am? I grew from the dirt I was planted in. I'm not proud, but I'm not ashamed because there are always reasons, and reasons aren't excuses. It's okay to be ashamed and embarrassed of excuses, but never of reasons. It's okay to be proud of accomplishments, but never of symptoms, and drinking is a symptom. Let there be no doubt about it. Genetics, imprinting, familial witness, and home remedies. Predisposition and instruction, conscious sedation and relief from the never-ending noise of dragons counting and recounting their gold. The sirens wail, and the restless leg of the mind is never still. Everyone has a cave. Nepenthe and rue, ephemera mixed with holy water in a grail. I shrug because it is what it is. It's getting late, so I pay for my groceries and transition back to the streets. My anxiety is dozing in a lumpy pile just a breath beyond the automatic glass door. It yawns at me through brandied fur, and I grin because that's the ticket, isn't it? Ain't that a pip, boys and girls? I bounce and count the streetlights that spring into action or wink out intermittently on some sort of schedule I'm not privy to. I know that everything will be okay if I play it cool and speak only when spoken to. I know that I can play it off legit if I don't open my mouth uninvited. I don't need to share, and I don't need to inquire. I just need to cook the meat and build the burgers like novelty bears with pickles, and shaved garlic hearts on a brioche bed with a crisp green leafy blanket. I'll drink Coke and blood will drool out the corners of our mouths. We'll chew and the mayonnaise drips on our paper plates will look like cum swirled with menstrual blood. We'll listen to Blur sing about park life while we chew. After that, the tiny girl with the nigger hair and freckles will retreat, and I will face the living room and the ghost, and I won't care because if I time it right, I'll blink and it'll be tomorrow. I talk a lot when I time travel, and isn't that what blacking out is? Blinking out while you keep busy. I have to finish up the bit about Aaron and put that to bed. I have other things I should be doing. I don't know how long I've been standing on the front porch. Fuck. Erica grew up far away in an ethnically diverse multiverse, and she was proud of her progressive worldview. She was the first person to ever point out how casually racist my family was, and how unenlightened my Downeast patois came across to the uninitiated. It used to amuse me to push her buttons by dialing it up. I never swore, I cussed, and she wasn't just cute, she was right cunnin'. Nothing broke down, it got fucked or stove to shit, and the Jamaicans who lived across the street weren't uppity niggers at all. They were actually pretty okay as niggers went. It didn't amuse her. When Penny turned 3 and her Canuck curls came in fuzzy ringlets like chestnut springs, I was ecstatic. Look at her. I'd beamed. Another nigger-haired pelletier. Which is exactly what my Mamie had said when my hair had come in just so. I thought it was hilarious. Erica did not. Oh well. I'm not sure why we torture the ones we love. I don't know why we extend kindness to the people we despise. It seems like a bullshit way to operate, but it's as real and immutable as the granite that lives 6 inches beneath this island's soil. I tease my children, but only gently. Not because they've lost their mother or because they're fragile. I'm easy on them because a bloodline is an organic thing and it evolves. My small humans are evolving versions of their mother and they aren't finished yet. They're still cooking, still working it out for themselves, and I don't want to poison them over much. Everyone else is fair game. I walk Penny through the burger dance and she takes notes with her eyes. I tell her. The key is seasoning, and I show her the proper blend of garlic powder, black pepper, and chili powder. I tell her. The key is a hot pan. Spread salt on the bottom and drop your burger. Don't squish it and don't move it around. And she nods as the patties sizzle and smoke. I tell her. The key is basting, now watch. And I drop pats of butter with Worcestershire and rosemary into the pan to spoon over our burgers. She looks skeptical and I laugh, rotating the pan like a magician doing a trick. I say. The key is knowing when to flip the burger. Too soon and there's no crust, too late and the Worcestershire burns, she says. How many keys are there? As I flip our burgers and turn down the heat, I grin at her. I say. Get a keyring, now fetch the cheese, the key to a decent burger. Is the right cheese, got it, Maird. Good girl. She fetches a log of goat cheese from the fridge, and my inner Quebecois does a little dance. She's her father's child now, by default. I make a mental note to call my dad, check in with the old man. I won't tell him about the ghost, but it'll make him smile to hear that his granddaughter cusses in French without realizing it. We cook 3 burgers and set one aside on a plate for Boo. It will disappear while we're asleep like the cookies and brandy we leave out for Santa on Christmas Eve, and that's fine. I know Penny misses her brother now that he's too old to wrestle and read her stories, now that he's a shadow man. Erica and I used to marvel at how connected our kids were, how in sync, like a pair of supervillains always plotting against us. Frick and frack, tight as fuck, adorable really. I know Penny misses that connection and I wonder if Boo misses it too. I should talk to him. I should sit him down and open up about where we are and where he's going. The ghost is right, I need to engage. It's just a dream journal, Heather's idea. Penny does the dishes without me having to ask her, and I know that's because it's a hole her mother used to fill. Dad shops and cooks. Mom cleans up and orchestrates bedtime. Dad sits in the living room and drinks, listens to Sonic Youth, and Tom waits or maybe tunes his guitar and sings old Cat Stevens songs, while Mom moves laundry from the washer to the dryer, and the Smalls sing along without realizing it. I haven't touched my guitar since the funeral. I don't even know if it has all of its strings. It's probably missing a high E. I tend to break that one. There's a drawer with spare strings in the cellar. In Boo's world. All these fragments of then swirling around in a snow globe. My daughter is collecting some of them and forcing them to sit still in an effort to make sense of the whirlwind. I think, if she was just a little bit older, she'd opt for escape, find a boy or a girl, and run away from these caverns of static domesticity, from the shadows on the floor and the whisper prints of Octobers come and gone with a mother and a father and a brother and a shared harmony. Probably a girl. I'm pretty sure Penny is gonna play softball someday, and I'm going to have to rethink my porn habits out of respect. Maybe I'm just afraid of her meeting a boy like me and ending up broken in a blueberry bush. I'm getting ahead of myself. Quiet Cam, be still. My head is a helium tank when Penny kisses me goodnight. I settle into the couch and weigh myself down with a heavy wool blanket. I turn on the TV and wait for Erica to join me. It's no good to crawl into bed, not yet. I have to finish up the saga of that girl or collapse into myself, whichever comes first. I scroll through Netflix and settle on an old Clint Eastwood Western. I like reverb. I like the way he squints. I practice my squinting and I feel her slide her wind fingers through my curls. I stop squinting and sigh. I close my eyes. Transcribed emails from Shelby Patterson, my father's literary agent. January 22, 2021. Cam, I don't know what to say. Words are your thing, not mine. Maybe there aren't words. I don't know. Erica was a wonderful woman, a truly beautiful person. I can't even begin to imagine what you and the kids are going through, but I do imagine you're probably tired of people pretending to. I just wanted to say that I understand you shutting down for a while. I would too, and I'm sorry that you have to go through this. I've cleared your schedule indefinitely, not that you had too much lined up. Just the novel we pitched Viking, but that's a fall thing. Take a break and rally. We can talk shop when you're ready. If you need anything I can give you, don't hesitate to ask. If you want to rant to an old friend or kill a bottle of scotch, I can be on a plane tomorrow. Just let me know. I understand that the funeral was a small thing, and I get that, but I would have been there in a second if you'd asked. We've known each other a long time, Cam, and as hard as this is, I know you'll get through it. Jesus, I sound like an asshole. Sorry, words. Just let me know if you need anything. You and the kids are in my prayers. Shelby. March 3, 2021. Cam. It was good hearing your voice the other day. Giving people space is a bitch, you know. Or maybe you don't. It is, though. It's a bitch being a three-headed dog, too. One part agent, one part friend, one part insufferable bastard, your moniker, not mine. Cameron's friend is worried about you. Cameron's agent is still waiting for new pages, and the insufferable bastard in me had to Google how long you should let a man mourn his wife before you start talking about money. I can stall the bloodsuckers at Penguin, play the widower card, but I can't make them disappear. You took the advance, and I took my blood money, so there's an expectation to cough up a manuscript, preferably in time for Christmas. I don't want to pressure you, but that's part of my job. It's most of my job, to be honest. Just let me know when you're ready, okay? I'll run interference till then. You said on the phone that you were doing okay, and you sounded sober and put together. But I know you and I worry. I've never buried a wife and I don't have kids, but I have a decent imagination and a pessimistic temperament, so please take care of yourself and find your way back into your writing. It doesn't just pay the bills, it's who you are, Cam. Erica wouldn't want you to lose yourself. Anytime. Shelby. June 16, 2021. Cam. So what's going on, buddy? I ran into Doug Reed at a fundraiser last week, and he asked about you. Had a lot to say about you, to be honest. He's a prick, granted, but he's a connected prick, and he tells me that he heard you were picked up for D&D. Said he heard you were cracking up and wanted to know if my golden boy was old news. I told him he spoke nonsense and bullshitted him into submission, but one paywall breach later, I read your name in the online version of your local rag. Seriously, Cameron, you picked a fight with a fisherman. Pathos on the page is one thing. It's an entirely different thing on this side of it, and it's not you. You write poems and novels about elf girls who fall through cracks in time. You don't pick fights with the local talent. Tell me it was all a misunderstanding. Tell me it's a funny story, and then reassure me that the Cameron Pelletier I know and love is doing just fine. Send me a story, any story. So long as it's the one we pitched to the Penguin. Agape. Shelby. August 24, 2021. Cameron. You're scaring the shit out of me. When we talked last year, when we pitched your next bestseller and Viking wrote us both checks, you were on top of your game. The first dozen pages you sent me were transcendent, brilliant, pick your favorite word for really damned good, and I started plotting the tour. Christ, I started drafting your Pulitzer speech. I know Erica's death was going to scramble your brains for a while, but this? I don't know what to do with this, Cam, I really don't. You've skipped a groove. This story arc doesn't resemble anything you pitched, and it's grotesque. It's ugly, unpublishable. What the hell would the book club ladies say if they got their hands on your arc? I mean, they won't, the Penguin won't print this. But if they did, it'd ruin you. Cameron Pelletier writes delicious fantasy novels, quirky dystopian, speculative erotica dressed up like satire. You make people laugh and sigh and get weepy from time to time, but you don't piss them off or offend them. At least you never have before. I understand that you've got some dragons to slay, but Cam, this is not the way. You're freaking your old, long-suffering, worrywart of a friend out. Please tell me you still have the pages you promised. Please tell me this arc nonsense is a very unfunny joke. Shelby. September 5, 2021. Cameron. Pick up your goddamned phone when I call you. I don't know what the fuck is going on in your furry little head, but sending me draft after draft of this bullshit, is it even a story? It's almost as if you're actively trying to disgust the reader. Like it's an experiment. Forget the fact that it, in no way, shape, or form, resembles anything we talked about previous to Erica's accident. Forget. For a moment that you promised your publisher a tight little foray into historical, romantic fiction. And explain to me why in the hell you think it's a good idea to create the most unlikable narrator ever and have him brood over humanity's wretchedness. An alcoholic pedophile with a god complex. What the ever-living fuck, Cameron? You're drinking too much. That has to be it. For God's sake, sober up. If you're done, just say you're done and return the advance. I'll eat my share. If you're having some kind of mental break, just get some help and figure it out. But if you're still in there, then quit the bullshit and get back to what you do best. I think you're giving me an ulcer. Shelby. October 2, 2021. Cam. I'm done. I wash my little Jew hands of you. I thought we were friends. I thought we had a relationship. I cannot believe you have the nerve to gaslight me on this like I'm the one who lacks vision. Listen to me, Cameron Pelletier. You are a hack, a lovable, marketable hack. It's a kind of genius and it's rare. But not that rare. I can wash my hands and find a half-dozen younger versions of you who will pay the bills. Just watch me. You really want to split hairs over this. You really want to defend your Teddy because he's ephobophilic and not a pedophile. You want to dress up an existential midlife crisis as art. You're not a fucking artist, Cam. You're not Burroughs or Vandermeer. You're not even Kadri. You're not funny. You're not edgy. You're solid. At least you used to be. I thought we were friends. Do me a favor and return the advance. Then lose my number for a year. Shelby. From Arc, previously unpublished. We run out of water 5 days in, so Carrot says, whiskey then. And we all nod 'cause we were thinking the same thing, and why not? 5 days without windows, and we were all as restless as rats. Danny is wearing the keys on a dog tag chain, just like we agreed when we split jobs and divided the dangers. He tosses it to Carrot like a grenade, glad to be rid of it. Both of them look at me. I'm the reason for the key. He rubs his naked neck like a half-hanged man and smiles authentically for the first time since the rain started. Everyone pretends not to notice, and he gives up, drives black hands into khaki pockets. Carrot nods at me and ducks under the bar. 6 shots in 6 glasses for 6 heathens and their +1. Carrot doesn't bother pouring for the Reverend. He hands him the bottle, and that's fine too. The Rev mumbles a prayer, swigs, and the congregation drops their shots like choreography. The Reverend passes the bottle back to Carrot, who pours another round, and this time everyone just takes their glass to wherever they sit and sips. Wouldn't do to go too fast. No shortage of booze, Lord no. No shortage of time neither. Carrot slips the bottle back beneath the bar and locks the cupboard. He keeps the key, though. No one raises an eyebrow. I was a teacher once. Deirdre is never gonna graduate high school now. Lori isn't thinking about her husband or the affair anymore. Carrot is still tending bar. All of Danny's clients are dead, so is Sophie's girlfriend. No one remembers the Reverend's name. He only said it once and we all forgot. The world is drowning in poison outside, and there are mice in the rafters scratching about like any other Tuesday. This is it. This is as good as it gets. It's funny, I'm convinced that we were all people when it began. More or less. Some better than others, perhaps. Part of me wants to diagram our evolution, maybe lead a workshop on relativistic morality and identity shifts. It'd pass the time. It would be fun to break us all down into our stereotype shoes and hats. It would amuse me to fortune cookie the various sins we will inevitably commit alongside the various ways we will justify them. We are rapidly becoming two-dimensional versions of ourselves, characters in a pulp fiction novelette, and the best part is that none of us cares. We're off leash. Everything is simple now. Carrot told me last night that he wasn't afraid of dying, and I was like, no shit, really? Weird, me either. And we were both telling the truth. I decided this morning that I was gonna fuck Deirdre before I get too weak to hold her down, and that's all right too. It never used to be, but that was then. Lori stands up suddenly and heads for the kitchen. She needs to do something with her hands. Someone murmurs something about not being hungry, and someone else agrees. I think I might as well get started on my lesson plan, so I wander over to the bar and take a seat across from Carrot, who is just staring at the shuttered windows without any expression at all. Danny joins us and sits next to me for lack of anything else to do. None of us speak. We don't have to. We're like ants. I can see the Reverend in the corner reading a magazine. Sophie is braiding Deirdre's hair into pigtails. Perfect. Danny clears his throat. So. And that's my cue. I've been thinking, boys. I've been having a whole comedy club routine play out in my head, to be honest. Carrot nods, but doesn't say anything. Danny picks up an empty shot glass and holds it up to his eye like a monocle. I didn't know you did comedy teach. I don't, but this whole situation is like a movie, don't you think? Carrot sighs. Fucked up movie, boss. For some reason, Danny finds this hilarious. Maybe it's the profanity, maybe because I'm whiter than Casper the Friendly Ghost. I don't really care, which is liberating. Yeah, sure. Like a Mad Max movie directed by Mel Brooks. More like a Dean Koontz or Stephen King thing. Danny chucks. I nod. Sure, or like a DC Vertigo comic. Whatever, not the point. What I mean is that it's not real, but it is. It's all happening and we're living it, and that's all well and good. Define good. How is this good? Carrot punctuates his question by retrieving the whiskey. Danny sets down his glass. I reach for my own and Carrot pours a fresh round. We all drink. The bottle stays out this time. I swallow and grin. I mean, it is. No one's dreaming. You guys, me, the girls, the Rev, we're here and it's real life, but at the same time it's so damned unreal that it's more like a story. You see where I'm going with this? Nope. Fat blue-black Danny pushes his empty towards Carrot, who ignores him. Skinny guy, too many freckles, hair like a bonfire. He rubs his neck. When he does speak, he sounds ancient and exhausted. So, what's your point, Teddy? Yeah, I get it, shit's fucked up. Shit's weird as fuck. And I lift up my glass and salute. We've no mundane point of reference. All we have is our fiction and our fantastic. Silence, blank eyes. Jesus, what I mean is that all our quote-unquote real-life standards and practices don't apply here. We are smack dab in the middle of an impossible situation. An entirely new normal, for lack of a better phrase. New rules, new cause and effect, new ground, blank script, no society, boundaries, no gods. Danny laughs again. Loudly, he's not following me. Carrot doesn't laugh, he frowns. Planning a purge, Teddy. I shake my head. Not at all, Jeremy. I'm not planning anything. Yet, but look at where we're at him. 7 misfit toys sheltered together in a bar against what? Acid rain on steroids? Laser death water from space? We have no idea. We know it melts shit, like people. For all we know, we're it, all that's left of humanity. Carrot grunts. Unlikely. Time for my shit-eating smile. Sure. Okay, maybe not. Maybe there are people holed up like this all around the world. Maybe every bar and every shoe store is its own sovereign city-state now. We don't know. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't change the fact that whatever was is over and whatever comes next is completely different. Danny raises his empty glass and grins like an idiot. Fuck water, he says. I prefer whiskey anyway. I ignore him. Carrot just stares at me. Finally, he hands me the bottle. Okay, you pour, and you tell me what you think comes next. Friday, 3:45 p.m. Ted is too sober to process his day. Too sober to go home, grade papers, too sober to deal with his cat. There's a Weakerthans song about a cat named Virtue who sits in judgment of the singer, and Ted sympathizes. Ted's cat is named Ulysses and yowls at him. Ted hates his apartment, and the ghost of Emily that never leaves just lingers like a film of dead cigarettes on every surface. Ted hates his job, his students, his dead mother, this town, this life. Ted needs a drink, and the bartender is an impossibly tall and skinny kid with wild orange hair. Applejack, double, neat he manages, and a glass materializes. There is a mid-40s woman at the end of the bar nursing some sort of vodka and fruit nonsense. She's had a good cry recently. Her makeup is in her eyes. Ted turns his head. He feels naked. Watched. He always does. He's not supposed to be here. At a bar across town from the campus where everyone still thinks he's in AA and doing just fine. There's a middle-aged man sitting by himself at a high table sipping scotch from a square glass. Chubby. Ted thinks he's the darkest-skinned man he's ever seen. Maybe Haitian. He doesn't care and returns to his drink. It's gone. He orders another, and the universe slowly shuts the fuck up. Another song plays through his underthoughts, something about dragons in the singer's head, a room full of giants. Ted doesn't realize he's doodling in the bar napkin, but he is. It's something he does, something he's always done. He used to paint. Fuck, he thinks, I should paint. The thought dissolves in a lens flare. Someone is screaming at something outside. Someone is always screaming at someone outside. Ted notices the pressure drop and has a vague memory of the radio man saying something about rain and wind this morning. Ted doesn't have a coat. Ted doesn't own a car anymore. Ted doesn't have a wife to pick him up when the bar closes anymore. Ted doesn't give a shit. The carrot head fills his glass on cue, and the dragons retreat further. No dragons here. Only salamanders, mewling pink things without eyes, crushed beneath a glacier in a vaguely foreign kingdom far, far away. Ted laughs. Being drunk is good. Being drunk is good. Lost in the sauce. Lost in jazz like a shopping mall soundtrack on the edge of town, where nobody knows about the ugliness of last year, and the carrot head and mascara mess and Mr. Black as night and noise, commotion. Ted swivels, and there is a well-dressed man with a crew cut, wild eyes, and he's pulling a woman girl. Through the door, arms are flailing, and there's a sound like metal tearing and thunder, and the girl is hysterical and screaming. It's on me! Get it off of me, get it off of me. And Chubby has his face and hands pressed to the window, and Mascara Face is frantic with her phone all of a sudden, and Carrot Head launches himself over the lip of the bar in a slow-motion arabesque towards Crew Cut. He slams the door shut, and it all happens at once. That's when the lights flickered and then gave up. I need another drink, Ted thinks, but there are sirens in his head now. Dragons with fall-out noisemakers for muzzles stomping through the streets here, on the edge of town. I tell him I don't know what comes next, and it's the truth. But that's the point, I say, that this is the most nobody-knows situation that we've ever encountered, and that speculation is futile. Expecting shit to make sense is ridiculous. We need new glasses, new eyes, the old prescription is whack Jack. Carrot shakes his head and leaves me with Danny and the bottle. I hear him in the kitchen with Lori shuffling cans and pans around, and that's fine. He's not where I am yet. He'll get there. He has time. Patience and time to do it right, child. That's what George Harrison said when he was on cloud 9. Danny nods to his empty glass, and I pour him a shot. He's not a real drinker. His eyes are swimmy and wet. He smiles. I guess I don't know what to think. I'm glad there's still food and that it's not freezing. And I'm glad I'm not alone somewhere or outside. He shudders. He's pathetic. I didn't always think so, but maybe I did. Maybe my skin is peeling off. Maybe my scales are showing. I shrug and take the bottle with me. I want to know what the Rev thinks, but I don't, and I can't be too close to Deirdre. Inhibitions and filters are before now things, and I won't show my hand yet. Not until they all see. Not until it's blood, sport, and ecstasy. I settle in a booth and lick the wet mouth of the bottle with my lizard tongue. I remember. The sun rose and set, and that was the first day. Lori had run out of the kitchen when the sirens started, and the Reverend had relinquished Deirdre's shaking scream into her heavily tattooed arms. Maybe he was grateful. He gave no sign. Sophie gave up on her phone and made for the door. Don't, was all the Rev said. Just don't, and somehow that was enough to scare the shit out of me. I don't know why. His eyes were wrong, like he'd seen some heavy shit. Monsters, Teddy, my mother's voice. Demons from hell. Eldritch gods, children with blood for eyes, hungry and unfathomably evil, the shadow beneath my bed, and I forgot about drinking. Suddenly I wanted Ulysses to howl at me, anything familiar. What the heck is going on out there? Danny at the window, barely audible. "It's the end of the world," a dry whisper. There was a tear, just one. Carrot Head was behind him, back to the door, and there were thuds beneath the sirens. Thuds and screams and splashing, spraying rain sound, the snare drum rolling of water through metal gutters. Carrot turned to the window. "Lock the shutter and sit down. I'll get the other ones." And Danny did. And Carrot did. And the Rev and Sophie sat down across from Danny in a booth, and in a nightmare I joined them, and for a minute no one talked. We listened to the girl sob from across the bar as Lori held her until the sirens stopped, and then one by one everyone talked a bit. I must have dozed because Sophie is tugging my shoulder and there is food. No one sits with anyone else. Everyone has their own sit, their own space. It's better that way, no discussion needed. I smile at Sophie, stand up, stretch. I'm still not hungry, but I take a plate anyway. It's ritual now. Everything becomes ritual in time that isn't old or new, it just is. There are more open bottles on the bar, Carrot's doing. There's rum and vodka, tequila, brandy and schnapps, scotch and bourbon, a buffet. No more water to ration, no need for restraint. The bread and frozen meat would be gone tomorrow. How long can a man live on booze and canned fruit? I intend to find out. After that there is other meat if you have the stomach for it. The hills have eyes and so do I. Sophie leaves me, and I forget her immediately. The emergency candles Carrot brought up from the basement cast a weak yellow on the congregation. Everyone's aura bleeds into it. Emotional gumbo. I count to 5 before heading to the bar. Carrot looks up from his cold hamburger but says nothing. I take the brandy. It belongs to me and I know that. I still have 3 cigarettes left. No one else smokes, so I carry the bottle and a candle to the basement. I wonder if my plate will wait for me. It doesn't matter. I leave it on the bar and slink. When I was in undergrad, there was a sad girl that slept on my couch. She just grew there, watered by the leaking ceiling and fed by dusty light from reading lamps, cup of soup and keg dregs. She was the sister of a friend who lost his shit one day and dipped, leaving his mess divided between his circle of friends. She was my portion. Beverly. Sweet lost Beverly in oversized clothes, and me an angry philosophy major living on cigarettes, Kierkegaard and Evan Williams. Sometimes I remembered to paint. Sometimes I listened to Nirvana and pretended I was a rock and roll nigger. I cried a lot. Beverly barely spoke, but she listened. I had words and I gave them all to her free of charge. I never touched her and she never touched me. One day after finals I came home and she was just gone. No note, just a girl-shaped dent in the couch, my brother, and I had dragged from my father's basement the 2 stories to my campus loft. I've never forgiven her for leaving, and now I imagine her melting, screaming then silent, washed away with the rest of humanity. Deirdre looks like Beverly if Beverly had stayed 16 forever. It's like a second chance at the end of the world and I'll drink to that. Why the fuck not? We were strangers when the rain came, now we are congregation. I think we are the only people left, and if not, we are the only ones that matter. That is my now. That is my real. I can hear them upstairs, feet dragging across a wooden floor. Maybe Sophie will sing. She does that. She sings and the Rev prays and the others sway back and forth, everyone but Carrot. Even I sway with them. I sway because the songs and the prayers are for me, because I am prophet and God now, because I am eternal and unending, and I know I'm not any of these things, but it amuses me to play pretend. What else do I have? We learned each other on the first night we couldn't sleep through, and now we wait for answers or release or inspiration or death, and I am tired of waiting. We all are. Something will happen, someone will break first, and then it will be carnival. Carrot knows more than he lets on, and the Rev refuses to believe, and the rest only see what they want to see. For now, everything will happen soon. Upstairs, Lori and Danny clear the banquet. The Rev is reading his Bible. Sophie and Deirdre are laying down head to head, and Carrot is just listening to the rain. I'm staggering now. I stagger to the Rev and drop without grace beside him. How's your book, Rev? The Rev doesn't smile. I don't know if he can. I quit drinking when I was 20, did you know that? His eyes are black moth. No, sir. I grin. It's a lie. I didn't know, but I did. All alcoholics are brothers and we can smell our own kind. He nods slowly. And now here we are and here I am, and here it is. I think God will forgive you. I giggle. And that was that. Everyone has a story. 8. Sundresses and too much wine. Erin pulled her hair from the shower drain before she left, which was nice, thoughtful. I switched the sheets, emptied the ashtrays, and watched her change into a brilliant orange sundress over thick cotton leggings. My mistress, I thought absently. She had called herself my mistress, and what a funny word that was. She kissed my nose and asked me again if she was invited to the wedding. I nodded, and then she was gone. Poof, just like that. I surveyed the studio, then fell into a camp chair, exhausted and overwhelmed. Erin had blown a series of fuses, and I didn't have the energy to reset the breaker. Andy materialized an hour later. Andy was the queen bitch of dramatic entrances and exits. When she blew through the door, she was electric, radiant. Long car rides did that to her. I imagined her practicing punchlines in her empty car while the radio screamed a steady diet of horrible 80s pop music. She tossed her overnight bag into the empty sink and spun in a circle before dropping into an exaggerated curtsy in front of me. I didn't move or twitch or say a word. I just sat. I'd been staring at the door for an hour, nursing a bottle of gin. I decided to forgo glass, ice, or a mixer in favor of get-to-the-point drunkenness. A bottle is a glass, after all, if you want to split hairs. I didn't feel guilty, not exactly, but I knew that whatever else I was an open book, and I thought that if I could disappoint her straight out the gate, it might make a decent disguise. I was right. Jesus Christ, Cameron! She snatched the bottle from my boneless fingers. I didn't resist. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, kitty cat, I breathed. I missed you. Her eyes softened, a little, and she set the gin on the edge of the sink. She ran her gaze over our tiny living space, blinked a few times, and seemed satisfied. I started to stand up, but she waved me down. No, sit, she said. I got you something. Just stay put a second, I need to pee. And she disappeared into the bathroom. I extended my arm, reclaimed the bottle of Beefeater. Who needs a glass? My thoughts were looping. It comes in a glass, doesn't it? I swallowed once, twice, 3 times a lady. Surprise was a fishbowl the size of a basketball, half full of cedar shavings, and topped with some sort of garden mesh fastened with a very large rubber band. Where in the hell do you buy giant rubber bands? Floated through my overloaded consciousness. Nestled in the shavings was a juvenile white rat, about 2 inches long from whiskers to tail. She set the bowl on my lap and clasped her hands behind her back. In his bowl, the little guy stretched upwards towards me and yawned. He had enormous yellow fangs. You can name him. I've just been calling him Squeaker. He's wicked friendly. He'll sit in your hand and groom himself, or on your shoulder. He's too young or too smart to jump off. Do you like him? I set the half-finished bottle of gin on the floor and lifted the bowl to eye level. The little rat reached for my nose against the glass with tiny articulate claws. His eyes were candy red with no discernible pupils or whites. He wanted out. A rat. Andy kneeled down next to me and grinned. She was beautiful on her knees, my Andy. Yes, sir. I thought you could use a friend, someone to talk to and cuddle with when I'm gone. Then she made a stern face. He'll eat anything, no special diet required. Don't give him booze, though, I mean it. Rats can't vomit. Is that so? I was barely paying attention to her. The little rodent was desperately trying to claw through the glass. I pulled off the webbing and put my hand into the bowl slowly. He scampered up my sleeve and crawled into the cup of my hooded sweatshirt. He made satisfied, grinding sounds. He's bruxing, I mouthed, absently, grinding his little teeth. Andy nodded, kissed my cheek. Not so little teeth, she corrected. They're sharp, too. Considered yourself warned. Andy stood up and started unpacking her bag. I picked up my gin, thought twice about it, and set it back down. I said, "Thank you," and she made a non-committal MMHM sound. She had moved on. "You're welcome, Mousie. Happy birthday, then. I thought we could order Thai tonight if that's okay with you. The little guy didn't break the bank. He's a feeder rat. I think I saved him from the belly of someone's pet snake." I told her that was fine and stood up to stretch. The little rat stayed snug in my hood, and I didn't see any reason to return him to his fishbowl. Point of fact, Paul, which was what I eventually named him, more or less lived in my hood or in one of my pockets for the next 2 years. Paul lasted longer than our nascent marriage. I put the bowl on the bookshelf next to a stack of shot glasses and followed Andy into the bathroom. She was half naked and inspecting herself in the mirror over the sink. No freckles, no moles, no birthmarks, polished marble in plum shades of Victoria's Secret. Jin Vision inserted Aaron into my viewfinder and compared notes, which was unfair, and I scolded myself, shook my curls. Andy didn't notice. She didn't care that I was watching her. I doubt she noticed. I leaned against the door and listened to Paul grind his teeth. Andy turned on the shower. Fiancé, I thought. Mistress, I thought. I am in a fishbowl, I thought, and the thought dissolved in a lens flare as the Jin finally caught up to the conversation. We ate me pad and spring rolls. We fucked in the loft. It was good, natural. She was an aggressive lover, and that was fine. There were no visible signs of my affair, but Aaron's scent never left my subconscious data stream. She was present in her absence, and I knew I was in big trouble regardless of what Andy did or didn't know. I had broken an unspoken promise, and I realized later, as Andy snored beside me, that it was unspoken. We had never discussed fidelity. Fidelity, like so many things in our relationship, was assumed. At least, I assumed it was assumed. Andy wasn't jealous, but then again, why would she be? I belonged to her. She knew it, I knew it, it was general knowledge. Andy was an only child, and she had been her daddy's princess. She didn't share her toys or accept divergent viewpoints on anything of merit. Exhibit C. Andy controlled and manipulated variables like an old Looney Tunes cartoon. She was Bugs Bunny. She was the Roadrunner. Once upon a time, I found that comforting. It was safe. Andy was always, mostly, sober and focused and prepared to wage whatever war was required. And she won. She always won, and she didn't take prisoners. There's security in that. She didn't see loss or retreat as an option, so why would it occur to her that I would wander into another woman's arms? That I would defy her vision? Laying awake in our loft that night, I got mad. I stared through the back of her head and fumed in silence. Booze had everything to do with it, like an ice pick cracking open a strong box. Andy had chosen me. She had decided me, marked me, and defined me. Andy had filed me in her Rolodex under P for possession, and that's what I was, a clearly defined commodity. Of course I wouldn't cheat on her or choose someone else. Cam wouldn't do that. It's not in his design specs, at least. It wasn't in her Ray design specs. The truth sank in deeper. I didn't have to worry about her finding out because she wouldn't be looking for signs or evidence. It really wouldn't occur to her. And I was going to marry this woman. I was going to sign off on her casual, dismissive, two-dimensional perception of my psyche and my soul. It hit me like a sack of polished stones. Andy liked it that I was weak and broken and drowning because I was manageable. I could be herded beside still waters and returned safely to base camp with minimal effort. I wouldn't rebel or question or stand up straight because it wasn't in me to do so, not on my own, and she sure as hell wouldn't empower me or lift me higher. I was safe. And for years I'd been led by my nose, Ring because she tossed me cookies and doled out my candy at regular enough intervals to keep me hooked and numb. I worshipped her. I felt grateful. I honestly believed that I didn't deserve her and that she was out of my league, but I had throat-fucked an elf. The elf had rode me like a mechanical bull. The elf had considered me fuckworthy despite being 17 and perfect, and there had been no power exchange or sacrifice or offering required. I had picked up a mistress all by myself. I had big boy shoes after all. Christ, I was so mad. And suddenly I didn't care. A cord snapped in me. I slipped out from under Andy's dead weight and climbed down the ladder to the ice-cold white tiles. I sat cross-legged like a yogi with my hands in my hair and my bare bone of an ass pressed flat into the facsimile marble, and I rocked back and forth, front and back. Then I started giggling, and it didn't matter because Andy could sleep through a tornado. I resolved to keep Aaron in my pocket, and I resolved not to care. There would be no consequences, no fallout or catastrophes, because in the end, I'd marry Andy according to plan, and she'd never know that I'd taken anything from her. I'd know, but that was my private jackpot, wasn't it? That was my win. That was going to be my compass and my gyroscope from now on. The knowledge that this one time I did this one thing that was mine, all mine, all mine. It was a stupid thing to believe, but in the moment it seemed brilliant and profound and transformative. Naked on the floor, it felt good, and I luxuriated in it. When I woke up with my face glued to the floor, I was rigid and cold, but I didn't care. My magnet had followed me into what comes next. I really need to sleep. I really need to snap out of this progression or regression or whatever it is I'm doing. The atmosphere is like lead and my chest hurts. I am so tired. Erica wants to know if I ever cheated on her, and I shake my head. Not because I don't want to answer, but because I'm exasperated with her. No, I manage to spit through clenched teeth, and it's the truth. You can't lie to a ghost, and you can't gaslight a ghost, and besides, I wouldn't. I've come this far, and we've dug this deep, and we've passed the point of no return. We are mid-purge, and maybe the worst is yet to come, but the vomit comet has been set in motion. Every word is true, dear. No, I never cheated on Erica. I didn't need to. I didn't need a mistress. I didn't need the universe to throw me a bone, and I never went on an elf hunt. She wants to know why. You didn't go looking for Aaron, though, did you? Fuck you, Erica. Isn't this enough? No, I didn't go looking. But the Cameron Pelletier who railed a high school girl while his fiancée was rat shopping, and the Cameron who couldn't bury his wife for months because she had the audacity to expire in a January snowstorm, are not the same man. I want to scream. You Erika, I loved you, and you loved me, I know you did. And we were children once upon a time, and then one day we grew up. And when I killed her, that little boy died with her. But I don't. I don't want to frighten my 13-year-old daughter who knows none of this and God willing never will. I don't want the neighbors to talk more than they already do. What are you writing, Dad? Don't you see? I tell the empty amphitheater. She didn't love me. Andy didn't love me, and it took me a long time to grasp that. Too long, and it wasn't an all-at-once realization either. Our shared sickness, our addiction was morbid and chemically bonded to our DNA. It was a thing. And it was. I'm too tired to fight, and I'm too sad. I stand up and the world swims sideways and then back again like I'm a skiff in the tide holding on to my tether. I march, forcing my eyes to narrow and focus and take the stairs slowly. I don't bother to undress. I don't brush my teeth or wash my face or my hands. I just fall into bed and roll the comforter over me. I become a burrito on the furthest edge of the mattress. I fall. This was the dream, as best as I can remember it. Andy is spinning in slow motion, and there are Christmas lights and flower petals in the whirlwind of her wedding dress. She has no feet. She defies gravity, and everything is slowed down. Made of light through water with glitter and dust and piano music that tastes like cranberries and champagne. She is laughing, and there are men and boys laughing all around her. She is a music box ballerina, and she has blue eyes and yellow hair in an impossible braid covered in pearls. They are pinning dollar bills to her dress and bowing and poolsing around her like carousel horses in Charlie Chaplin tails and ties. I am watching her, and she is lost to me, and I smile, but only because I am invisible behind a smokescreen, which is safe and good, because I don't want her to see me watching her and hatting myself all at the same time. The priest is drunk. He is trying to break through the membrane of reeling tuxedos to dance with the princess. Andy is also drunk, which is rare. There are tiny red wine blossoms on her corset like bloody kisses. She's growing green leaves and clapping. The room is an amoeba of clapping and buzzing, chittering laughter. I am not laughing, I am so very still, and I smell Erin before I see her. She is vanilla and lavender and clove, and I don't turn or speak, but her hands slip soft and tiny around my waist and slide up and cover my eyes. She says, "Guess who?" and clicks her tongue, and then she is biting my neck from behind, and she purrs. She purrs like a kitten into my ear and chases the purring with the hot, wet tip of her little girl tongue, and I am melting, and nobody sees. Nobody sees because nobody remembers that I am here. There is only the spinning bride and her impotent suitors in a row like toy soldiers made of mirth and merriment and crisp green tributes. They are lost in worship, and good for them. I don't think. I don't have to think, but I turn and I kiss the elf, which like a snake swallowing a field mouse. You came, I say into her mouth and her ski jump nose and her eyes done up with rhinestones. I kiss her, and she kisses me, and her thin arms encircle me, and we dance slow in a circle on the edge of everything. Come to me, she says. Come inside me, she says, and I can see through the thin fabric of her baby girl sundress, which makes me hard, and makes no sense when October wind is scraping the trees into bony talons outside and waving, making a fuss, pointing east. I can't, I tell her, but she is purring, and she stands on my feet, and we spin, my mistress. I breathe, and her eyes are like furnaces. She is in gin and efreet. We dissolve somewhere silent, and she lifts her dress, and I am inside her heat, and she is want and so very wet. Something shifts, and time blinks us, fast-forwarding to the last of the lights twinkling, and the crowd is going home to become real again. Aaron and Andy are slow dancing to mental music, and Andy's hand is undoing buttons. She is exposing the white globes of her breasts, and Aaron nurses like a baby. Andy's eyes roll inward, and her head lolls back, barring her neck, and my hands are on her neck. Choking, and my lips suck wine from her tongue, while Aaron licks pink nipples into polished granite rose buds, and everything is real and has weight. The earth shakes and vibrates. The air is a mirage-filtered desert with floating water between the door to the ice black under a street light. But we hold hands and laugh, running in a chain down one street so loud. And we are falling into leaves and leaving our clothes like shed skin one scale at a time behind us, like crumbs leading to our marriage bed. We writhe, we scream, we are chimera, and I catch Erin's glinting eyes, and she winks with her tongue in my wife's hairless cunt. I come again across their backs, and everything fades and drowns in a deep hole going down, down, down. And I think, nothing matters, we are dying, we are eating death, we are swallowed. I don't need an alarm to wake me when it's time. My body doesn't need me to wind its key. Not now. Not with years of early mornings coded into my biorhythms. I shook free of the dream sweating, and I taste like salt, which is strange. It's strange to taste yourself, to be aware that you have a taste. I'm not self-conscious, and there's no time anyway. I need to find shoes and keys and get to work. I need to make Penny's lunch and put on the tea water. I have to piss Lake Michigan. My bladder has reached the end of its patience. My phone is on the floor, which is curious, unfortunate, unusual. Its face is scratched, and there are words I can't remember writing. That can't be real, Cam. You did not. I blink again. I make a face because I did. Andy had been time-travel drunk, and Erin had carried legitimate magic in her pockets, hidden wings, a hidden agenda. She told me later, in hushed conspiratorial tones, about spiking Andy's wineglass with X, and then she'd put one finger to her lips and grinned. Erin had come to the wedding as an invited guest in a sheer dress with nothing under it but mischief and 17-year-old hormonal sorcery. She'd mingled, made small talk with strangers, and she'd cornered me. We'd fucked in a pantry closet in the basement of the Masonic Hall while Andrea danced oblivious and adored by all. That girl was a devious little sprite. Erin seduced her way into our first night. She shattered Andrea when the princess was half mad with lust and bridal gravity, and for weeks after she'd lingered in and out of our bed. Andy made a joke of it once. She crowed that girl was the universe's wedding present and our honeymoon all rolled into one. Andy had embraced the sapphic, and she'd shared her toys for the first time in her self-centered life, because in her mind she was being benevolent. She was sharing Erin with me. I don't know how the ghost worked it. I don't know if the wind can type or if the dead can animate the dreaming like a marionette, and I don't care. It satisfies me that she'd read my dream and that this particular chapter and verse had flowed out of me without any effort or conscious thought attached. I pocketed my phone and began ticking tasks from the prep list one by one. 9. Monotony is music. I dropped out of college one semester shy of a useless degree. My father was furious, and I'm sure my mother was screaming from hell, but I just didn't see the point in following through. If Andy were alive, she'd tell you that not following through was one of Cam's love languages, right next to functional alcoholism, and forgetting what obscure dialect I'm cussing in. She'd be right too, because the Cameron she knew never finished anything but a bottle. Her Cameron never went all the way until he did. Of course, the Cameron she knew and loved and pitied in equal measures disintegrated himself more than 20 years ago. Good thing, too. That guy was pathetic. That guy was a huge asshole who disappointed everyone. I quit school because the marriage was falling apart, had been fraying and unraveling, and I could only focus on one dead or dying thing at a time. I chose the one who bylaid me out of jail, even if it was only to continue the yelling. I chose the one who shared my name and my bed and my bank account. I made a bad call, and I think I knew that then. Boo, after the sparklight of that girl had faded, I was still institutionalized. I was still tethered. I hate having to move and to build from the ground up. I'm more of a Finnish carpenter, really. That hasn't changed. The ghost knows this. When I met Erica, I was in a shitty cover band made up of fellow wet-head kitchen monkeys called We. See. It was supposed to be a clever. Ostensibly, it was an amalgam of weed and sea, but that's a chuckle of drunks for you. Everything sounds clever when you're drinking with the boys, but it's worse when someone plays guitar because a band is the inevitable punchline. No one ever got the joke. We didn't go on tour or cut a record, but we did get asked to close out a handful of local bars on a semi-regular basis, and we had a lot of fun doing it. We were blowing off steam because we worked ridiculous hours at breakneck speeds, and when the shift finally ended, we were too angry and wired to sleep. Erica Talbot was a cute girl in the front row for 3 of our gigs before I found enough courage to address the me eyes she brought to our rough but enthusiastic performances. She was made of eyes, and she grinned like a she-wolf with a mouthful of blood. She was liquid and suede and pigtail glitter. She was a manic pixie dream girl before the trend, before the meme, the Disney version of a rave goddess baby doll. When the set was over, I'd staggered into her gravity well and said something stupid that she'd laughed at, and that was that. I ditched the boys as soon as the gear was packed and took her home. I wish I could remember it better. What is certain is that it was good enough for an encore. I don't do restaurant work anymore, and my body is grateful. These days, I work a tablet PC that connects to my phone via sorcery. I sold my first story the year Erica and I were married, my first novel, an adolescent smutfest masquerading as high fantasy came a year later. That was the year we bought the house on Maple. The year the boo bump arrived, and we felt so damned grown up. I tell my therapist that I used to have dreams, and she writes that down in her little book and nods. She asks me why I let them go, and I kill the hour with I don't know maybes. It's bullshit in the first degree because everyone has dreams and nightmares, and they never really go away no matter what you do to fill the tank or your time. No one stole my childhood, and I've never sacrificed anything meaningful. Nobody does. We just shift gears. Today I'm wearing a blue button-down chambray shirt and worn-out Gap jeans. Today I am wearing a faded Boston Bruins ball cap, but underneath I am Indiana Jones, and I'm fucking Drew Barrymore backstage at South by Southwest. David Bowie just offered me coke, and I snorted off his cock, because if I'm gonna go gay, it'll be Bowie all the way. I've played poet and painter and academic. I was a sous chef when I met Erica, and I still cook for my kids because every key change adds a layer to the underscore. These days, I have an agent and a publisher and a priest hole in the Digital Library of Congress archives. When I left the house this morning, I was a lot of things, and I'll be even more tomorrow. I have a laundry list of me stuff, variables in the complex me equation. I assume everyone does. The fact that we only wear one pair of shoes at a time offers an illusion of growth, but when you get down to it, when you shave off our fur, our stripes remain. We are the son of our stripes, not our shoes. I can count the different ages and stages of Cam on one hand, and since I'm self-aware and ponderous by nature, I can feel the storm coming and the tidal shift that will make me a shedder again. I will become a slightly larger, less stable version of last year's man. And I liked last year's man. Last year's man had 90% of his shit together and was doing just fine. Last year's man had his monkey on a short leash and a wife who filled in the blanks. That guy didn't hear voices, and he laughed a lot more because life was funnier then than it is now. The jokes were better. The audience was more vital and less concerned with deeply buried secrets. Last year's man wasn't in a band, but he still had the guitar, and when he sang, his heart was in it. Last October was a bonfire, and the kids danced like stickmen, hooting and hollering outside the house that Smut built. I miss the cuddles. The ghost didn't ask because the ghost doesn't care, but Andy wasn't a lesbian or even bisexual. She just liked attention, and she liked winning. She wasn't bored with me or with life because Andy didn't get bored. That was one of her superpowers, and it was equal parts maddening and attractive. Our wedding was a victory for Andy. It was proof of her dominance. She'd been drunk with it. Aaron was the sugar blood frosting on Andy's dominance cupcake. In her mind, it was a successful power play, and I never told her otherwise, that she'd been drugged over the edge. I never told her that she'd been Aaron's pawn that night and the days and nights that followed. I never told her because it was a win for me. Just carrying a secret was a win. I kept my mouth shut because I wanted to hold on to that win as long as possible. It wasn't even about sex for me, though the sex was mind-blowing. Not gonna lie, the sex was. I came home from an evening class one night to find Andy leafing through one of my doodle journals. She had looked up at me and smiled. She said, "I told that girl to go home today," and I'd nodded because I'd expected she would eventually, and that was fine. You can only sustain a moment so long, and part of me was relieved. I didn't love Erin, but I'd been struggling with the knowledge that she was in love with me, and that love was dangerous. I liked that Andy had cut the cord before we'd been caught in a glance or a covert touch. I asked her, how did she take it? And Andy had handed me my journal and stood up. Stretched. Feline. Well enough, she didn't fuss. I haven't thought about any of this in years, and the memories aren't welcome visitors. Of all the reasons Erica could haunt me, digging her ghost fingers into the dirt of my first failed marriage is at the bottom of my list. Questioning me now, after so much elapsed living and breathing and moving on, can't be healthy. Opening stitches, begging me to cut myself open and bleed when all I really want is to hold her again and feel her heart beating. It's cruel. It's unnecessary. I don't like the idea that she wants to hurt me, but it's entirely possible. I gave up on notions of heaven and hell a long time ago. I don't believe I have a soul teetering on the brink of damnation. I can't see Erica as my Jacob Marley or my Clarence Oddbody. So if it's not all in my head, her agenda is. It's frightening to think that the dead hold grudges. It's terrifying to imagine committee meetings where the dead share intel and conference on how best to repay the living for their sins. If there's another answer, I'd sleep better knowing it. I need to process and get my ducks in a row, get my story straight, because she's waiting for me to get to the point, and the point is still very far away. I'm keeping it far away and delaying the end game with these notches on my timeline because maybe I don't want her to disappear again. Maybe I do feel guilty, and maybe I really do need to get these things off my chest. Maybe confession is good for the soul I'm not sure exists. I don't know. It's October and there are bats in my belfry, so I sip my tea and sit waiting for something to happen. Nothing does, and that's wonderful. There are reasons why things happen. I think it's all connected, dear. There was fallout, there always is. Erin wrote me letters. She addressed them to the Main Classics department, which raised a few eyebrows but none serious enough to birth questions. The letters were oddly girly. Cute, sad, pleading, filled with bad poetry, which was a language I understood and appreciated. I never responded, though I cherished them in spirit. I tossed them in faraway trash cans in the interest of self-preservation. She didn't beg, but she suggested all sorts of unrealistic schemes. She told me she loved me and would do anything for me. She said she'd wait, though for what I had no idea. I never promised her anything. I never suggested that I'd leave Andy. I never had considered any sort of permanence beyond Andy. After a while, the letters became small and mean, and then they stopped, and I was relieved. There was fallout from Andy as well. It was as if she'd woken up one day to the realization that she was in danger of losing control, and that would not do. Once the novelty and bragging rights had lost their luster, she chose to tidy up our lives, and part of that process was never discussing the event itself. Erin became that girl, and later, even that epigram was downsized to an anecdote about that time she'd indulged her husband in a schoolboy fantasy. What was her name, Cam? That girl we played with. I spoil you, Mousie. Go fetch. I held my breath a lot in those post-wedding weeks. I tiptoed around Andy like she was a dozing dragon dreaming on top of her hoard. I didn't want to upset the delicate balance of having my cake and fucking it too, and I didn't want to let on how the whole experience had changed me. I didn't want her to see the sliver of spine that I had grown because it was fragile and vulnerable. I didn't want to poke the bear with a stick because I knew the bear would eat me, and I didn't want to be done quite yet. I wanted to explore the undiscovered country, so to speak. I knew what she was doing with my journal, and it made me smile because I'd seen it coming and left no trace of my affair, psychic, cryptic or otherwise, anywhere permanent. There was no black and white absolution or incrimination. If anything, I'd done the opposite. Every crumb I dropped led back to Andy. I documented our life like the Queen's historian writing her commentaries. All my poetry in those days sang the praises of hearth and home, of love and marriage, and it wasn't all bullshit. It wasn't everything, but it wasn't bullshit. It didn't prevent her from taking precautions, and there were sanctions. Andy punished me for her crimes, for her hindsight doubts and insecurities. Andy battened down the hatches, recalibrated her sensors to maximum sensitivity, and waited for me to react. She tracked me like a sniper. I was always in her sights. She dropped clever landmines in every conversation for weeks. Those were dangerous waters, but I was a step ahead because I knew what she was doing and why. I kept my nose so damned clean. Andrea and I met when we were 15 years old. 10 years later, she was dead. That decade, that chapter of my life, could be graphed on a whiteboard and used as a teaching model, a roadmap for aspiring novelists. Point of fact, it did. We can call that Exhibit D or E or whichever one we're up to now. Introduction, rising action, climax, denouement. Protagonist and antagonist, conflict that generates plot development and the climactic resolution of that conflict, followed by shockwaves and the establishment of a new paradigm. The hero, the anti-hero, the boon from the gods, the battle. The loss of favor, and finally, the tragedy that provides a lesson for subsequent generations. I would laugh more if I weren't central to the story. If I were an outsider looking in, I'm sure I'd find the cliché and the pastiche derivative and comical in equal spades of earth. I've locked it away for so long. I'm embarrassed, which is different than feeling guilt or shame or sorrow. I'm embarrassed because I wrote a trite screenplay. I tried taking my name off the film credits. I tried burying the whole miscarriage in unlabeled cans, and for 20 years that worked out great. My career didn't suffer. The early days of Erica and Cam's 21st century romance were a lot like moving to a new town and a new school, one where no one knows your face or your past, and you can reinvent yourself. Be anything you want to be. Experience teaches you what works and what doesn't, who to avoid and who to trust. You want to take all those lessons you've learned and make a new start with a clean slate. Do it right this time. But for fuck's sake, it's still you, and you still suck at life. So you end up looking like an idiot all over again, and nobody is fooled by your cheap camouflage. I was young, but Erica was younger, and the disparity meant something in our 20s that it didn't soon after. In the beginning, I was an older, more weathered and distressed version of the towny boys that chased her kind, and it turned her on. I had a job and my own digs. It was a shitty one-room apartment, but it beat the hell out of living with her parents in the house she'd grown up in. I displayed my red flags on the front porch. One by one, she measured them, considered them before accepting them as the incidental fines and fees, the small print. Erica wanted freedom, and whatever baggage she had to sort through to get it was an acceptable price to pay, and she did pay it. I made sure she paid it in full because I was an established entity when I met her, and most of my patterns were fixed. The Andrea years had taught me the importance of stubbornness and solidity. I was me. She shrugged and hugged the ugliness. And she made me a better man. That girl was a chemical reaction. That girl was a virus, a declaration of disobedience, and a sign of unrest, of things to come. Erin entered, danced, and when she exited, she left the chessboard in a state of flux. She disrupted the static and blew an air kiss across the dominoes. She did all sorts of things that sound serious when you indulge yourself in poetic bullshit. She tickled the queen bee. She opened Pandora's train case. And the arguments and the tears and the reasons that swelled from the tiny flapping of her elf wings became a tsunami that birthed ultimatums and sacrifices. I dropped out of UMaine the January that followed our wedding dance and got a real job because Andy was losing respect for me and was worried about our future. I was drifting, she said. I lacked direction, she said. I needed to provide. When that proved impossible, we flew south to Lewiston and found a real apartment on the river, a peeling paint wreck boxed between dollar whores and a needle dispensary. Froggy chic. The move had been Andy's idea, and she orchestrated the details while I sipped in silence and waited to be told how to react. I put things into boxes, and I listened to her preach and teach and declare and bemoan and blame. I loaded our car with fragments, and she mocked me, told me I was an idiot, that I was lucky to have her, that I needed her, that I owed her. I alternated between whipping boy and fuck toy, sounding board and whiteboard. Sometimes I took Paul for walks in my hood around our new terrarium and practiced whistling into the wind. Andy switched from pre-med to nursing and pretended she was happy about the decision. We made friends with our neighbors, smoked weed, went dancing, watched TV. Andy got a tattoo. We both drank too much and we argued about nothing at all the time. It was like foreplay to an endgame orgasm that never actually happened. We devolved. It's easier to remember these things and say these things without Erica in the room. It's easier to sit at my desk, surrounded by the emotionally neutral fixtures of my impotent workspace, than it is to pace back and forth the den where every mundane object is an icon or an idol, every creaking floorboard and wheezing copper pipe a lament, every whisper a reminder. My house and its resident ghost. My widowers keep where I am the dead queen's prisoner. It will all come out in the wash. Eventually. For now, I will be in love with my ceiling fan and my whiteboard, because it's quiet and I don't have to be afraid. 10. Domestic violence and milk. I knocked her on her ass once. You did what? I slapped her, hard enough to knock her off her feet and into the wall. That was near the end of our nightmare period, and her reaction isn't what matters. What mattered then is what matters now, how completely unprepared I was for that zip line to snap. Looking back, it's easy to see how frayed and abused our umbilicus had become, but in the moment I was horrified. I was the one who called the cops while she slipped down and settled into a weepy puddle. I had pivoted mechanically, dialed 911 on the ancient Bakelite rotary phone that came with our apartment, and walked outside to wait for Lewiston's finest to arrive. I am not a violent or an angry drunk. As a rule, I swallow my anger, shit it out later, and bury my shit in a hole. Sometimes I listen to Nirvana or Sonic Youth and paint horribly abstract abuses of color. Sometimes I write lyrics to songs that no one will ever sing. Most often I turn off the part of my brain that thinks and feels and wait for the people around me to decide what's best for me. I don't, as a rule, raise my fists or break things. I'm not sure if I'm healthy or repressed, and I don't waste a lot of time ruminating over the question. I'm a product of my environment and of my genetic blueprint. As far as reasons why go, I'm fine with that. I've never been interested in psychology. According to my therapist, I'm pragmatic, which sounds impressive, solid, and maybe she's right. I'm not an optimist, but I do believe that everything that happens is inevitable, and so I've never worried over much about consequences. I don't live in fear or trepidation. I pre-accept. I don't care about appearances or what other people think of me. My mind is usually unfiltered and uncensored. People tend to think I'm rude or standoffish, but never violent or willfully cruel. I simply am. There's a Catholic schoolboy, like a wax relief, impressed on the walls of my inner space, and he's convinced that control is an illusion, that there are incomprehensible forces that dictate our reality, and that we exist according to their grace and largesse. It's like Christian realism without blood sacrifice or unattainable holiness. Resignation breeds patience for the most part, and patience is kind most of the time. You need to work hard to blow my it fuse. Wicked fucking hard. Andy could do it. She knew all my passwords and unsafe words, every trigger. She knew them because I'd given them to her. Willingly. I was emotionally transparent and naked in front of her, and she used that against me whenever it served her purposes. She was evil. I know that now, and I knew that then. Evil and sexy as hell when she wanted to be, narcissistic and sociopathic, and I was hers to cleanse, to fold, and to manipulate. I kneeled down for it, bent over for it, but everyone has limits. You actually hit someone. If by someone you mean Andy, then yes. And afterwards I was empty. I was numb. I shook. It was almost an hour before I could speak, and when I did, it was robotic. I told the officers we'd been drinking, that I had lost my temper, and they secured me in a cruiser while they interviewed Andy. I have no idea what was said. I never asked. I was fingerprinted and put in a plexiglass box with a bench to sober up, and when I finally did, I shook even more because I was terrified of myself. I'd lost control. I'd snapped, and I couldn't remember the exact incantation or sequence of events that had broken me. In the morning, I was moved to a community cell with a half-dozen strangers for 3 days. I ate prison eggs and prison oatmeal. I stared at prison walls, and I felt nothing but abstract fear. On day 4, I wore wrist and ankle chains, told a judge that I understood the depths of my transgressions, that I was sorry, and they let me go with a fine and an order to remain sober. I collected my clothes and walked the 6 miles home to find Andy in bed with a book. She didn't say anything. I took a shower. I poured myself a drink. I let Paul crawl onto my shoulder and sat down on the threadbare sofa we'd scored from Goodwill. Andy made pasta. We watched something on TV, Law and Order, I think. It was our show. We didn't discuss my little vacation or the events that had led up to it, and that night we slept next to each other facing opposing walls. I didn't dream. Point of fact, I couldn't remember what we'd been fighting about. Point after the fact, I don't think it mattered. Sometimes I wonder what it was like to give the order that dropped nuclear bombs on Japan. I've watched a dozen documentaries about the pilots and the victims, but never one about the white men in 1940s suits and ties who'd sat in a room and nodded to each other, never about the button pushers themselves. What were they feeling? Did they go home and kiss their wives, pet their dogs and drink a beer? Did they tuck their kids into bed? Did they make love to their wives gently, or were they rough? Did they cry when they came, and did they sleep peacefully? Did they dream? No one talks about that sort of aftermath. I was aware that I'd crossed a line and that I couldn't cross back again. It wasn't the slap. It wasn't the unprecedented act of aggression. It was the snapping. We had reached the tipping point, Andy and I, and there were reasons. Cause and effect. Thermodynamics. These were the death spasms of a million cold kicks that Burroughs wrote about in his Naked Lunch. This was the frozen moment when Andy and I were forced to see what was impaled on the end of our collective fork, and it was ugly. Repulsive. Is that when she left? No, she didn't go anywhere or do anything, and that was one of the effects. We pretended, we erased, we continued as if nothing had happened. We glitched. The arguments, thin things about money and time and dreams deferred, stopped entirely. We measured our waking hours in tasks. We moved in unstable orbits around each other. I'd lost my job. It happens when you drop out for days without warning. But I started a new one. It was easy to find work if you didn't have an ego about what you were doing, and I'd set my ego on a shelf. Andy went to class and worked as a CNA part-time, which kept her busy and drowsy. I found a second job, and we paid bills on time. We stopped having sex, but that was all right. I didn't begrudge her distance, and she didn't question my lack of interest. We existed. I think we both knew that whatever we'd been had died, but we weren't sure what came next. We'd been doing this us thing for too long. I don't understand, you said. I said that she left in anger, and she did. Eventually. We had to walk through a rather boring version of Dante's Purgatory first, that's all. We had to recharge. Andy needed leverage and friction to get moving again, and I needed to shake myself awake enough to face rebirth. It took months. It was summer before we motivated ourselves into forward motion. Our lease agreement ran out in May, but we extended it 1 month so Andy could graduate, and then we fled north to the island. My father had put a trailer on the postage stamp lot next to his house, and that's where we found ourselves the summer of 1999, winded, shell-shocked, but otherwise functional. We made do. We played house. We settled. I don't want to be here, Erica. I don't want to dance this dance with you, and we're not even there yet. This is just the monotonous prequel. I want to shake free of you and cry in your absence knowing that we're actually done and that everything we did is gone. I want to tear out the walls, burn the furniture, and replace the stained glass windows with open October air, crisp and clean. I want to firebomb this sepulchre church and build a functional house out of its bones, one that our children and I can connect in without your scent making every moment a choice between the sacred and the profane. They deserve that. I deserve that. You don't deserve anything anymore, kitten. You should move on. But you aren't listening. You aren't human anymore. You are unfinished want and unfulfilled need. You are humming. You are drumming your fingers against the hardwood. Your tiny wail brushes through me. Tell me what happened next, Cameron. Nothing happened, dear heart. Nothing at all, not for a long time. In fact, so much nothing happened that for a while I ceased to exist. True story, I just winked out. There are very few legitimate constants in a man's life. I'm not a believer in absolute truth, but I do believe that there are some things that linger longer and burrow deeper, deep enough to have the look and feel of permanence. My short list included booze, unfiltered cigarettes, and Andy. Almost everything else was transitory. Almost. Whatever pragmatic function my body was engaged in was subject to those 3 influences. That and location. I have never defined myself by an occupation because occupations change and rarely reflect the inner workings of a man. I have never been a fanatic or a zealot. No ideology has ever superimposed itself on me. I don't have a clique. I do, however, have a strong ethnic connection to Maine. That is an understatement, Cameron. It never occurred to me that I would or could relocate beyond its borders. Why would it? I'm a part of the landscape. I am one with the earth and sea, which sounds like hippie bullshit when you say it out loud, but it's true enough in practice. I am a hard-drinking island boy from Maine. That's who I am. The last battle, the dramatic conclusion of my first marriage, happened without warning on the pull-out sofa in our tiny trailer, and it had nothing to do with gelflings, or unpaid electric bills, or black eyes, or drinking. It was only marginally related to the quiet disdain and resentment which had grown like a tumor between us. It was just, "She asked you to leave." No, she told me we were leaving and I said no. We were. She issued an ultimatum and I refused to go fetch. Somewhere in the null space she had found a dust mote, given it gravity and spun herself a pearl. Andy had been rebuilding her militia in secret, drafting battle plans, and I hadn't seen it coming. She lobbed it at me like a grenade, the worst kind of friendly fire, and when I refused her it broke the universe. What do you mean it? I heard it break. I heard it shatter like a snow globe on the pavement. I saw the miniature Andrea and the miniature Cameron explode outwards in a shower of glitter and plastic and lead paint. Our trailers shuddered. I roared at her. You daddy barked. I did. When Boo was 2 years old, he escaped the front yard and was nearly flattened by the summer traffic that screamed by our little farmhouse. This was before I'd built the fence and planted the ivy that ultimately ate the fence. This was before Erica and I had figured out that we couldn't stay kids and be parents at the same time. We were chasing the little guy around, laughing, drinking, being stupid, and we lost sight of him for 30 seconds. That's all it took. The little bastard was fast. Erica had screamed, and what came out of me would forever be referred to as my daddy bark. I bellowed at my son to stop, and he did. So did Erica. So did the green station wagon barreling towards my son. Time stopped, and then both Boo and Erica were crying, and I just stood there surveying the frozen landscape. I remember feeling as if I'd been caught in a lie because I'd never raised my voice in front of Erica before, and she just didn't know. I remember being angry at having been exposed. I don't like being pushed that hard. I hate it when you do that, Cam. Correction, hated it. You're dead, Erica, my love. And besides, in 20 years I think I barked a grand total of 3 times, and never without reason. There, surrounded by faux wood and faux leather and faux wedding vows, I had reason. Atomic fission. Truman with a big red button. Fuck you, here a heated. Divine whined my drunk Yankee ass, and Andy had screeched back at me with all the potency of a leaking helium balloon. I stood there, panting, heaving, and she threw a snow globe at me. I told you that, didn't I? She threw, I ducked, and it smashed against the oil-stained pavement. Then she left. She got in her car and left. She never came back. I cleaned up the glass and the glitter, and then I got shit-faced blackout time traveling drunk and stayed that way for a week. It feels like an anticlimax because it is. It was stupid, a non-reason to disengage. I could have agreed. I could have fetched. I could have sucked it up and survived. Hell, the change might have done wonders for my stagnant psyche. But I didn't, because there are a finite amount of hairs on a man's psychic camel. There is only so much sand in the glass. It feels like milk when she asked for wine, but that's only because she wasn't inside me then, and she isn't inside me now. That's the problem with real stories, they're impossible. I can't recreate that moment for her because it only existed inside me and Andy is dead. I'm alive, but I'm over here now, and all I have is words. Stupid, black and white words without blood or being. All I have is a memory stain, a hologram, a stick figure flipbook reenactment, and it's flaccid. It's static. I'm a terrible writer. For Christ's sakes, you know that. You know I'm a weak storyteller at best. You know I can't pull off a joke or compose a sonnet. I can't make you see what I saw or feel what I felt, and I can't make you understand without endless repetition just how goddamned cataclysmic these events were or seemed to be. And even if I repeated the same words over and over and over again, it still wouldn't scratch the surface tension enough for you too, and I hate that. Fuck. Andy's grandfather took Polaroids just in case he needed tangible evidence that his princess had been poorly used by a drunken asshole from Backwater, Maine. He mailed me copies, which I appreciated. They helped me piece together my broken timeline. There were pictures of the trailer's sink filled with empty gin bottles and filthy, food-encrusted dishes. There were pictures of the kitchen table and the counters covered in charcoal drawings, stream of consciousness laundry list pseudo-poetry, empty glasses and pizza boxes. There was rat shit everywhere. There were close-ups of me face down on the floor naked to the waist and covered in magic marker tattoos of my own design. There was even a picture of the fort I'd built out of couch cushions and the shower curtain. I'd filled it with framed photographs of Andy and I like a shrine. He took a half-dozen shots of my porn litter. Stacks of Penthouse and Hustler magazines I'd bought God knows where and made into a mess of cutouts, like a Brian Gyson fever dream of tits and hairless cunts. He took note of the overflowing trash cans outside and the overgrown lawn. He even took stills of the oil tank gauge, though I couldn't tell you why. To be fair, I never asked him. He had been polite enough not to wake me while he documented my avant-garde life installation. I certainly wasn't going to question his methods. The fact that he'd driven north from Boston to fetch Andy's clothes and treasures was above and beyond as far as I was concerned. It saved me the liability of an illegal bonfire. Somewhere in the tangle of waking and sleepwalking, I had gotten myself fired, which was fine. Everyone at work was an asshole anyway, a fact I made loud and clear, though I only heard legends about my exit speech much, much later. When I finally ran out of money for booze and cigarettes, I wrapped myself in a puke-stained comforter and watched every DVD Andy and I owned. Twice. I shook and chattered and rocked and scratched, and I ate every random can of food in the house. Applesauce and carrots. Cam, you. I hate carrots. I hate orange food. Yeah, I know, I was a mess, Erica. I was a hot mess. I came out of it eventually. I pulled a phoenix, but not before drunkenness gave way to anxiety and xenophobia to delirium. Not before I had cried and shit and puked and sweat out a lifetime of alcohol saturation, morbid self-attention and nightmares. It just took time to reset. Clarity returned. I stopped shaking. One day I felt strong enough to shower and brush my teeth and check the mail. That's when I found my grandfather-in-law's photo album. I went outside. I called some friends. I did have a few, and I'd scared them, so I apologized and they loaned me money. I bought some real food and a carton of cigarettes. I cleaned and gutted the trailer, and I packed everything into milk crates and liquor boxes. And then I took a cab to Bangor, where I checked myself into a rehab facility that doubled as a suicide prevention depot. My dad footed the bill. I stayed a month. No drunk stays sober for long, kitten, and I certainly didn't. I didn't kill myself, though, which worked out for you and the kids, I suppose, so let's call it a win. Andy managed the divorce while I was on my dry holiday, and I was hurt that she did it by proxy. I don't know what exactly I thought she'd do, but whatever she decided, I thought it'd be in person. I was wrong. I am often wrong, but that one threw me. From Arc, previously unpublished. It's Saturday and there are no cartoons, no Pop-Tarts. There's nothing left to eat but cherries, and Carrot wants to open one of the windows, and I think that's a great idea. He thinks the rain is changing. He says it sounds different. I think he's desperate to believe something other than locked doors and shuttered windows still exists. I think he's starving and half drunk, and I think that's cute, so I support him. It can't hurt. I lie, but the Rev is on his feet and shaking his head. No, he says, and it's too damned funny not to laugh. The Rev puts himself 6 inches from Carrot, one hand on each of his shoulders. Carrot stiffens, bristles, but doesn't stop him. Carrot is tall, but the Rev's taller, and his eyes are almost black, unblinking, fixed. His voice is well-practiced and calm. I've seen what that rain does to flesh, to anything alive. Do you hear me, son? It's hungry. It's feeding. Do you understand? There is nothing outside but death. Carrot shakes him off and walks slowly to the bar, scowling. Small. We're all hungry. He mutters to his feet and the Rev nods. Nobody breathes. It's hilarious. Come on, Rev, I giggle. He just wants to see to make sure. Who knows? Maybe it is over. We're out of burgers. Don't you want to get out of here? I know what he's going to say, but I want him to say it anyway. I need distraction. My eyes keep drifting to the scabs on Deirdre's face and neck. I want so badly to pick at them, watch her bleed. Needling the Rev is like drinking, and in my story, the Rev is the perfect foil for Carrot. In my story, I am Batman. In my story, the incidental characters flesh out the frames and everyone has a hat to wear. The Rev's hat is steel gray. What I want is forgiveness and mercy, Ted. I love this part. Do you know how long Noah and his family waited on the ark? A lunar year and then 10 days more. 370 days, Ted, and God preserved them. We've been here in this ark for 9 days now. If only we had Noah's faith. I don't roll my eyes, but I want to. I equate rolling eyes with freshman girls and football players who take art history classes because it doesn't involve math. I want to pretend I'm above such things, but it's so damned predictable. The Rev is just a caricature, a sketchbook character pitch for the network boys to whittle into whatever square hole this week's ratings demand. We need a vaguely Christian, older, wiser male archetype to counterbalance the weepy teenage girl. The hard as nails with a heart of gold mother figure, the obligatory middle, class lesbian, the affable black man, the young, underestimated, reluctant hero, and the cynical intellectual who drowns his heart in booze. It's almost perfect, and I'm amazed all over again, my luck of all the places to find yourself when the world ends. Sophie is first. She's not brave, just close to breaking. Her hands are shaking. She knows she looks like a feral guinea pig in business casual and sensible shoes. She knows she's not pretty. She knows she's lucky to have someone like Rachel to tell her these things, 'cause Rachel told her so. Will someone tell me what's going on? She bursts. Why is it so dark? Where's the sun? Is it a storm? Who is that girl? Why was she screaming? Out so fast, all at once, and tears are close, and the man in the corduroy jacket is staring at her, and she wonders why. Sophie thinks she's handling herself well. Sophie is 37, middle management at a bank 2 towns over, and she is so very sad because of Rachel and Rachel lying about taking her meds and Rachel who says mean things, and it's too much sometimes. But this is over the top, and what the fuck, and Sophie thinks she's being perfectly reasonable. She swivels. Gray hat man and the red-headed kid are across from her. The fat Negro is shifting from foot to foot like he needs to pee. She doesn't want to be racist, but she is anyway, though no one at work knows that. No one knows that she's scared of men because her father used to drink and hit and touch, and no one knows that she became a lesbian by accident at college, and no one ever asked. Corduroy has pushed in next to her, reeking of brandy and cigarettes. She's afraid of him, and that makes her wet, and that makes her ashamed. Gray hat swallows. He says his name. She forgets it. He's a priest or a minister or a pastor or something. He has a clerical collar and perfect teeth. He could be her father or one of his friends, and Sophie is scared of him too, but only because she thinks he can smell her. There was a woman with tattoos who took the bleeding girl away. It's so dim. Her not father tells everyone to be calm, which seems odd because no one else is shaking, and she realizes he's looking right at her and her hands, and she bites her lip. Yes, Papa, she thinks and counts to 10 in French. There's a storm, but it's not natural. The rain, it's... He takes off his hat and holds it up like evidence. It didn't burn our clothes. Nothing he says next makes sense. He says that the rain is poison. He says that it's God's judgment. He says that people are dying, that their skin burned, that their eyes melted and fell out, that the grass turned black and the trees steamed and fizzed into black clouds that choked the street and the lungs, and that it tasted like rotting meat. He says that he pulled the girl, Deirdre, into the first open door. He says that her skin was bubbling and he didn't know what else to do. He says that this is sanctuary, and she doesn't believe him. No, she whispers, but his eyes are burning and his voice is so cold. Now there are things making thumps on the door and everyone flinches, but no one does anything. Sophie thinks she can hear the thumps crying, but it doesn't sound human. She hears pigs screaming underwater. She hears 1,000 rats in a witch's cauldron. Sophie feels herself falling into herself like she's Alice in the well on Gran Pier's farm when she was a girl with ribbons in her hair and mud on her knees. The red-headed bartender is saying something, and the Negro is sweating too much for April in Maine. And why did she come here? She doesn't even like to drink. She had asked the redhead to make something that didn't taste like alcohol, and he had tried, but she could still taste it beneath the pink and the fruit, and her head is swimming, but nothing is any better. Rachel didn't answer her phone. Rachel is in her bathrobe on their deck overlooking the lake, melting into her slippers, and Sophie is here, and she is not listening anymore. And when the black man in pressed khakis touches her shoulder, she jumps back into her body, and her music catches up with the conversation. He tells her that it will be okay and to breathe, but his eyes are like dark chocolate bonbons. Sophie is like a leaf. She quivers, and every sound makes her twitch. I imagine her as a fly or a gnat hopelessly tangled in a spider's web. She doesn't struggle as much now. She did at first when it was all still new, but now it's reflex, unconscious spasms. Terror is like an orgasm. Eventually it fades into the afterglow of dull, pervasive fear. Maybe she's more like a bird with two broken wings. She can't fly, it just hurts too damned much. I should ask her. I frighten her, and I like that. Just another perk. There was a thought experiment that shook me badly my second year at Bowdoin. Game theory, determinism, futility grab bag of a class with this pretentious bastard prof who dressed like he woke up at bread and puppet one day and decided to teach upper-class white kids post-war philosophy. He wore a lot of beads, and I hated him unconditionally. The premise was simple. A man cuts his wrists in the bathtub and is waiting for death. Up to a given point, he has the power to choose life, call for help, get stitched up, and get pumped full of fluids and therapy. Eventually, though, he will reach a point of no return. Eventually, he will have lost too much blood to have the strength to act or recover, but get this, he's still alive and conscious at that point. He still has miles to go before he sleeps. What if he changes his mind then when it's too late? What if his anger and sadness suddenly don't seem as bad as the unknown? I laid awake at night trying to put myself in the tub with him. It fucked with my head. The prof wanted us to consider what might go on inside the man's mind in his final moments when all chance of revering direction was removed. It was a cruel thing to lay on us because we're not hardwired to think like that. There's always a tomorrow or a next time or a last-minute solution. I didn't sleep for weeks. What goes on in the man's mind in his final moments? Madness, that's what. The Rev says that he has faith. He's selling hope every day at wholesale prices, and the congregation is leasing it to buy. Even Carrot listens from across the room when the Rev offers us the benefits of his close relationship with the Almighty. Hell, even I'll admit it's a good motivator. The Rev's flavor of faith and hope has kept a bunch of frightened, hungry, and half-drunk strangers from going full-blown William Golding, and that deserves a golf clap. But hope is tricksy. Hope is far more complicated than we give it credit. Our hunger, our need for it, is buried deep in the core of our personal reality. It affects every choice we make. We move forward with the subconscious belief that we can always have a do-over, that nothing is really permanent, and that's the lie that preserves civilization. Some things are actually final, and that's scary as shit. Even worse is the realization that some things are unknown, completely other. No point of reference stuff, like Carib Indians seeing Spanish galleons parked in their backyard and glitching, cause it's not something they can process. Take hope away, and there's only despair, and despair is not as romantic as the poets tell us. Take everything familiar away, and replace it with the absolute certainty that what comes next is unknown territory, and despair joins forces with abject terror. This is the primary function of the Rev's secret sauce, to bypass the despair of finality, of otherness. To believe in something, someone, that the divine or karma or aliens or mom and dad, something, has got our back, and it's all good, bro. It's so much bullshit in the end, though, and I told the Rev as much that first night. He cornered me, questioned my faith, and I had let him have it. I said, "I'm on to you, Simon Peter. Just call me Judas." Carrot is still sulking at the bar when Lori discovers 2 jars of cocktail onions tucked away with the Windex and wood polish. She lets out a victory yelp, and we all add half-hearted hurrahs. Blurred by hunger and dehydrated and depressed by booze, it's the best anyone can muster. I think it's the small things that keep us tethered to humanity and rub the lip of my glass. Tonight we will feast on onions. I'll drink to that. Hell, we'll all drink to that. Danny isn't doing well. His eyes are fighting a losing battle with one another. One opens in time for the other to close, and his lungs are filled with angry bees. He doesn't smile anymore, not even at Sophie. Lori brings a jar of onions to the booth he's marked with his sweat, and she frowns, wrinkles her face. "Here, Danny," she says. "Eat something." But Danny just bobbles his head. She leaves 5 onions on the table in front of him and moves on. "I was someone, you know." Danny wheezes when she's gone, tries to take an onion without moving his hand and grunts. "I was someone." It's like the penultimate movement of a mediocre symphony. Danny's story is boring out of necessity. When Danny was a kid in potato country, there wasn't another black family for 200 miles, and so everyone around him was simultaneously racist and not racist. Danny was a novelty, not a threat. He grew up noticed, the way you might notice a misspelled sign at the laundromat, obvious, but not worth mentioning. No one ever lost sleep over Danny. His words, "No one ever lost a night's sleep over me." That was on the second night of our sleepover, after the apocalypse had broken the ice and we still had water. Carrot had given Danny the key to the liquor closet for safekeeping, so I'd made friends quick and I got the life story. Danny liked to talk. Danny liked to laugh. Danny was in real estate law and drove a Prius. Danny was never married, never had kids, played poker online, had 2 pet finches, and was begging God for a heart attack or diabetes or both. Danny had a healthy attitude about his health. That's what he told me. Those words exactly. "So you're a teacher?" He asked me, both of our backs against the far wall, our legs stretched out. "Yeah," I'd managed somehow. My head was Ypres 1914, and that freckled asshole locked up the booze when I'd let slip I was an alcoholic. After I'd made a few too many friendly suggestions and knocked a few too many glasses off one too many tables. It wasn't a hangover. No, no, no. People like me don't get hangovers. People like me go into shock. People like me can feel their organs stop working as the brain struggles to operate machinery whose chemical matrix has been grossly modified and no longer resembles factory settings. I kept thinking about Futurama, that episode when Bender replicated himself exponentially and consumed every drop of alcohol on planet Earth. There was a scene with a TV anchor woman, face like a death mask, screams, "I can no longer face my children." But I don't have children. All I have is Danny. Fat, good-natured Danny who wants to pick my brain about the shitstorm to end all shit shows. "So what do you make of all this?" he asks. "You think it's like the Rev says and it's God's judgment? 'Cause I don't buy that." My eyes are closed. The dwarves keep hammering and I manage. "Oh, it's all I got." "No, man," he says, slick as sin, conspiratorial. He even leans into a whisper, "Bioterrorism." I can hear him underline the words. "Has to be. North Korea or ISIS, I don't know, maybe Pakistan, someone finally decided to fuck us up properly. Or maybe it's something we made and it got out like an outbreak. Some sort of jacked up acid rain. You ever read The Stand? Heavy shit." Delivered with his best take on air of mystery and wisdom. Jesus Christ. I know what he wanted. He wanted what they all want and ask for in their own way, for me to agree with him or disagree with him, or to offer a theory of my own. A neat and clean synopsis of the situation complete with backstory, motive, and way out. He wants that hit off the hope pipe more than anything. "So you don't believe in God, Danny?" I sighed, and he got really quiet, which was good. What else could I say to him anyway? People like me just don't care. People like me assume the universe is designed to shit on its citizens, that clusterfuckery is the real music of the spheres, and that whatever God holds court over our reality is a hard ass to end all hard asses. That's why we drink, to keep from screaming, to shut down the voices, to effectively reach the nirvana of not giving a fuck. Revelation, wrath of God. Sure, makes sense. Evil government agencies with secret doomsday weapons. Top secret lab sets the second horseman loose by accident. Sounds legit. Maybe some mild-mannered nuclear physicist broke the universe while putzing around in his garage. Honestly, I don't care, and I can't tell Danny that because I can't explain it so he'll understand. Why and how doesn't interest me. All that matters now is what comes next. Death or filling the hours until death. All that matters is what we do with what we have. It's never been about triumph, it's always been about what we can get by with, get away with, what can we tolerate, and my tolerance for sobriety is minimal. He waited for me. I pretended to fall asleep. It was self-defense as far as I'm concerned. 11. Riddy out Beetlebum. Rehab was a head trip, and I've always meant to write a story set in a chemical dependency ward, a cuckoo's nest of my very own. There would be no conversations, only monologues. Everything would be white and yellow lines, dispassionate cubism underscored by canned music, and hard rubber shoes tapping endlessly on sterile linoleum, fluorescent buzzing hymns. In fact, it would be the sounds that dominated the telling Bartok on Prozac and Rohyphenol. I wouldn't cast myself as the hero because there are no heroes in rehab, and my own experiences, surreal as they seemed to me at the time, wouldn't amuse or inspire anyone. I guess we have to add this chapter, this event, to the list of shit I never intended to tell my dead wife, and the absurdity of that sentence isn't lost on me. All of this is madness. It's bonkers. There is no part of this fractured narrative that could be considered a welcome catharsis. These scenes are nothing but ugly, poorly written episodes of canceled sitcoms never meant for syndication. Abortions, and that's the real reason I've never written my little screenplay. It's too much like digging up stale shit to make room for more. More what? I don't know. This isn't my rodeo, asked the ghost. I didn't dream last night, and there were no urgent messages waiting for me when the sun poked through my bedroom window. I could feel her regardless. I could hear her. Erica was sitting on the edge of the bed like a memory, brushing invisible hair with invisible fingers and singing quietly without words, an indentation stirring up the dust sprinkles. Even her ghost was tone deaf, and I almost laughed. Absurdity. Morbid absurdity. The floor is cold wood, and I remember forgetting to close the upstairs windows before bed. I'm forever remembering what I've forgotten. It's early and the house is quiet with the exception of the ghost's atonal singing. I have to piss love. Give me a minute. And I shuffle into the bathroom with all of its rituals and ablations. Situation normal at Casa del Pelletier. My eyes are red and white cherries like milk and food coloring. My pupils are pinholes. I brush my teeth and use some of Penny's detangler on the mess of my hair. I suddenly smell like strawberries. I am a sweet-smelling vagabond. I look old and tired, and that's because I am. I think I really should shave, but the only razors Elle can find are rusty, well past their disposable usefulness. That way lies bloodletting. My face is red enough. There is so much teenage girl confusion in my bathroom these days. There are jars and tubes and sprays and sticks and colors, candy cartoon smells and powders. I have a minimal presence here, a widower's nook that's mostly pills, my toothbrush, and of course the rusting Bic razors in a jam jar. Otherwise, this is Penny's place now, and that's fine. It had been her mother's place once upon a time. As far as I can tell, Boo has claimed the tiny water closet off the kitchen. It occurs to me that bathrooms are inherently female temples, goddess circles where menfolk are permitted limited access. I am tolerated here. We share the dirty mirror with its mother-wife smudges like a communal shrine. I think we used to shower together. We used to do a lot of things together. We still have business together. Shit-digging business. I get dressed and I put on my wristwatch. I don't make the bed because I never make the bed, but I look at it. It's a mammoth thing, and I remember dragging the king-size mattress and box spring up the slightly curved stairs, and how it hadn't wanted to fit through the door. I remember being pinned between the mattress and the wall while I fumbled with the wrong size screwdriver in an attempt to pop off the hinges. I remember how she'd laughed and called me her hero, and how pleased she was when I popped through, red in the face and sweating bullets. Beds are widower memory magnets. We'd used a crib for Boo, but Penny had slept in the giant bed with us until she was almost 3. She'd slept between us like a little pink and gold starfish and Erica, and I would alternate between being miles apart or sleeping on top of each other on an edge. I remember my hand on her mouth, her hands pressed against the wall. I remember simultaneously freezing mid-motion if the baby squeaked or chirped in her sleep. There was no TV in our bedroom. There was no stereo or phone. Sleeping or fucking, dressing or undressing, dreaming, refuge from real life, sanctuary. Are you real, Erica? Are you really here? But the sunbeams don't answer, and I have responsibilities. I close the door behind me and descend to the kitchen, avoiding every creaking stair for no reason whatsoever. The Acadia Hospital and Rehabilitation Center appealed to me in the same way that Androscoggin County Correctional Facility did. I'm a creature of habits, and I appreciate routine. If rehab had come with a fully stocked bar and less group therapy, I might have signed on for a longer tour. The food was terrible, and the library was a heliotrope of sobriety propaganda and drugstore paperbacks, but I can and will eat anything, both figuratively and literally. Ostensibly, I was there to detox, to dry up and learn the skills required to remain dry. That was the story I'd sold my father and the resident physician who'd signed off on my chart. I had no intention of remaining sober or of learning coping skills, but I can play penitent when necessary. What I really needed was a vacation from everything, and the annoyance of extended sobriety and daily check-ins was a cost I was willing to pay. I didn't suffer. I had endured my DTs the 2 weeks leading up to entry, and my piss was crystal clear. My head was not. My brain was in recovery mode, and I was morbidly depressed. Exhibit D. Andy had absconded with what few happy thoughts I had left in reserve.